Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into today's webinar, another one in the series of Vibrate's educational segments where we share industry insight to help artists, labels, event organizers, festivals, and other music professionals further their careers. Today, we'll take a look at how major labels and agencies use music data to build their digital strategy. With us are two wonderful speakers. Jay Gilbert, who's created and executed unique marketing plans for Nirvana, The Police, and Guns N' Roses. He's been on the cutting edge of digital sales and marketing with Universal Music and Warner Music Group. Currently, he runs Label Logic, an artistic and label service company. He also publishes a weekly podcast and newsletter called Your Morning Coffee, where he shares insights that help artists, managers, and the labels navigate the new music business. And right here, Vibrate's own Micha Wiedmeier, who shapes modern tools for music professionals as an experienced product manager. Guys, I welcome you right here. I'm very happy we'll be talking about today's subject. Okay, before we jump in and start this discussion, I want you to know that there will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So I'd like to invite everybody to write their questions into the Q&A box. We'll take time at the end to answer those. For any quick info during the webinar, you can turn to our two panelists in the chat window. Now, before starting, Micha, for those of us who don't know, Viberate is an all-in-one music analytics and research platform. Would you be so kind and explain a bit more about what you guys do here?
Yeah, of course, no problem. So, like you already said, Viberate is a music research and analytics platform. Basically, what we do is we make life easier to musicians, labels, booking agents, managers, and other music professionals.
Right.
And we do so by gathering and analyzing data from various sources. So, we monitor social media platforms, music streaming services, as well as radio airplay stats, and we aggregate all that information to provide meaningful insights for those music professionals. So basically, with the help of Vibrate, you can, for example, help grow your fan base or find new talent or just simply improve your digital strategy,
Okay.
amongst other things.
Okay, but all of this data is already available across many different platforms, many different sources, actually.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you're completely right. But just one fact for you, there's 60,000 tracks uploaded each day to Spotify and numerous videos uploaded to YouTube. There are emerging platforms basically each year, if not each month. And it's impossible to keep an organized overview over the entire music landscape. So that's why we're there for everybody. So we help them keep an organized view of everything because you could do so yourself. You could build your own dashboards, gather your own databases. I mean, the major labels have been doing it for years, but
Right.
it just costs enormous amounts of money. And we're here to offer that data to everybody in the music industry.
To become accessible to everyone.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of majors, Jay, you've been at the heart of the industry for quite some time. Can you tell us more about how you see the role of data and why is it so important nowadays? I mean, there used to be a time that we could call pre-data driven music industry, right?
Right, there was. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where we didn't have very much data at all about our releases, about our tours, about our business in general. I remember once having a meeting at the original Napster. And what was really interesting in those days was for the first time we could see what the user was actually listening to and what was in their library. And that was revolutionary. You know, you might find that people who like Metallica also like Lyle Lovett. Well, maybe we should put them on the road together. That sounds absurd, but it just illustrates the point that for the first time, we really could see what was going on with our artists. And then there were some platforms that came out like Big Champagne. Eric and Ethan launched Big Champagne, and all of a sudden you could see where people were doing, bit torrents and file trading by DMA, designated marketing area, which is the same as what SoundScan was doing at the time. So it really informed our decisions, and it was really the start of a new revolution when it came to data in the music business.
But you've been speaking about uh, three different audiences in your podcasts, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's right. Yeah, it's really important, and one of the reasons you need data, and it speaks to what a lot of what you do at Viberate is to identify who your audience is. But here's the thing: you were referring to something we talk about a lot, which is there are three kind of buckets, three audiences that you need to look at, and they don't always align, right? The first one is commerce, sales, streams, downloads. That's one audience, and you should track that, obviously. Then the second one is, well, if you're touring, what are the butts in the seats? That may not align with your commerce. And then the third one is kind of the social side of it: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And you have to look at that data, because the bottom line is you need to identify who's your tribe, who is your audience, and find a way to reach them, engage with them, and grow that audience. You may be a new developing artist. You may want to find out, well, my music is like this other artist. Well, you need to learn about that audience. Who are they? What else do they listen to? What do they do? Right? And that's why this data is so important.
Okay, this everything you are mentioning sounds very interesting, but it when you mention data, for many people it becomes a bit too technical. Let's say my background in music, or no, my background in math is poor. Mija, is data still something that can bring me value, or do I need to take some additional courses?
Yeah, I mean, we all know not everyone likes data and numbers. I mean,
Correct.
it can even be scary for some people. So that's something really take into account when designing analytics tools. We understand that numbers can be scary, that not everybody likes long Excel sheets, but data can also be really fun. It can be very, let's say, informative, and it can be very visual.
Mhm.
So no, you don't need to be an expert. You can just learn along the way. And I think it's best if I just show you. I mean,
Please do, please do.
that's the best thing,
Yeah.
obviously. All
Yeah,
right.
and while you're pulling that up, I'd just like to put an
Go ahead.
exclamation point on what you just said, which is visual. And that's a thing that if you're not a data analyst, you can look at some of these things and immediately get a sense of how you're trending and how you're performing. And that's what I love about this platform is it's very visual, and you don't have to be a mathematician to understand it.
Yeah, you can just if we're gonna see what you're talking about, Mija here, there is
Hmm.
you can just glance
Okay.
at certain parts of this and see the trends as Jay has
Okay. I
mentioned.
see that now everybody can see my screen.
Yes.
So we're looking at an artist called I Hate Models, and this is actually his Viberate Analytics page. So first of all, here on the left, you can find his Viberate ranks. He's ranked number 17,000 out of all the artists on Viberate. And we can also see he's from France. He produces electronic music and specifically techno, where he's ranked number 74, which is pretty amazing,
It
right?
is.
But what I want to show you here is actually the career health section. This is actually one of my favorites. And that's exactly because of the reasons Jay said. You can just glance at some data and get a complete overview of a certain artist. So here in this case, we can see how the artist is doing across three key pillars of his career.
Apparently, he's doing a splendid job in social media performance. Music, not so much. What does that mean?
Let me just add that what we're doing here is we are comparing the artist to those who are similar to him, so those who also produce techno music and are ranked closest to him on the techno chart. So he here, since he's number 74 in techno, he's being compared to basically the best techno artists out there. So
Yeah.
his social media performance is good, which is actually amazing, by the way. We see that his music performance is fair, but that actually depends where are you in the release cycle also, or
That's
what you're
exactly
trying
right.
to achieve in that current situation. And then there's network
Right.
respect. That's a bit lagging behind, but I think he's just not that established yet. So
Hmm.
he has
Yeah, I
still
think
a long way to go.
I think that's really important to note that there's context here, and you just hit on one key thing, and that is on music performance. That's going to vary if you're in and out of a release cycle, so that doesn't concern me too much. I love the social media performance because, as we always say, it needs to be either an 80-20 or a 90-10 split. So 10% of what you're doing on socials should be buy my album, see my show, buy my album, see my show. The other 80 or 90% should really be that engagement and that communication. And I think that's why this social media performance is doing so well. Network respect is important, but that's going to be different for a new developing artist than an established artist. And also, if you're coming from another area, for example, we have an artist who is a famous actor who's putting out music for the first time. He's not going to have a lot of network respect in music because he doesn't have a lot of background in music. So that wouldn't concern me too much. But if I had an established artist and that network respect was low, I would dig into that.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But
I couldn't have said it better.
correct, Jay. How would you? What would you? If I Hate Models was one of your artists, how would you approach this particular not glamorous music performance?
Well, I would look at the release cycle. Where are we? It's an always on music industry, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Typically, there are those rare exceptions like Adele, who can drop music every 5 years and still remain relevant. But for most artists in the middle class of releasing music, that they need to continually engage. Maybe it's an every 4 to 6 week release cycle of focus tracks and then combining those into an EP or an album, however, whatever that iteration is. I would take a look at this particular artist's release cycle and see if they're engaging, if it's an always on approach, and see where they're at with that and maybe adjust it based on
Hmm.
that data right there.
Hmm. Jay? But what would you recommend to somebody who's just starting out with data? I mean, is there something you learned the hard way?
I think that, look, data intimidates people, but it doesn't have to. And I would highly recommend a couple of things. One is that you do a baseline, right? And what all that means is take a look at what your data is today, meaning how many followers you have on your socials, what kind of, monthly listeners you have on DSPs and how engaged they are. Just kind of take stock in all of that and set a baseline. Now you know where you're starting from. Now, going forward, set some realistic goals. You really need to have goals to see, are you overperforming? Are you underperforming? Maybe look at like competitive artists, in your genre or mood and see how they're doing and what their strengths are and set some goals. And then periodically go back and see how you're performing. And what I like to have artists and managers do is carve out time. Let's say it's every Friday morning at 8 a.m. You're having your coffee. Spend 30 minutes every single Friday and go through, take a look at your data, look how it compared to last week, look at your reports and just kind of get a sense of what is the trend. Are you growing? Are you kind of flattening out in some of these things, whether it's, with streaming, whether it's, with your merch, whether it's with touring, whether it's socials, all of those things. But once you kind of get into that groove of just glancing at it, you're going to get a sense of that. And then the second part of that is, and this is a part that I think is one of Viberate's strengths, is you look at spikes. Where are you overperforming and underperforming and why? And that's visually easy to see. And so when you see that you've got a spike either way, look and see what happened. Was it something you posted on socials? Was it a press hit? Was it a sync? Whatever that was, it sounds pedantic, but you want to do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And the only
Hmm.
way you're going to know that is by following that regularly to see how things are performing.
Hmm. But okay, goals. You mentioned goals. Can you give us an example of what can be a realistic, quantifiable goal?
Yeah, I think that a real, Easy goal is a certain percentage of growth when it comes to followers and subscribers, but more importantly, engagement. And one of Viberate's strengths is this really cool chart that you have where you can see as your audience moves, as your audience grows, how is your engagement growing? And that's the key. Things like likes and follows and comments and video views and all of these things, that's real engagement. I like to use the example that, I wear Dickies pants and I like them on socials, but I'm not engaged. I just click like, I like their pants. Here's the one you're showing the screen right now, fan base versus engagement. This is probably one of my favorite things on Viberate, and I look at it frequently because as you can see, the top is your fan base growth, the bottom is the engagement. And one obvious thing about this is when you see growth in your audience, your fan base, but then let's say you don't see anything happening with your engagement. And typically there's a lag there. It's not immediate. Sometimes people use bots and spin farms to jack up their numbers. And, maybe you won't do it, but you hire somebody who guarantees X amount of plays for a dollar amount. And that is so easy to see on this graph, for example, but it's so dangerous to do. It's, you can get pulled off of a DSP. We saw hundreds of thousands of tracks at the beginning of the year pulled off. So it's something we tell clients all the time. Don't do it. Don't ever do it. It's so easy to see. And if you go into this chart and you see a whole bunch of new fans, but you see zero engagement over time, it's a pretty good indicator that something like that is going on or your audience isn't engaged.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got, goals. You're setting yourself with a goal. Check. What's next, Micha?
Well, I just want to circle back a bit to the audience part.
Okay.
Jay mentioned 3 audiences, and obviously before coming up with some sort of plan, marketing plan, what you want to do, where you want to do it, you need to focus on your audience because it's important who you're communicating with.
Right.
You need to know the right channels to target. You need to know where your audience is coming from, how old they are, and in the end, this can help you actually create better content that will resonate with them.
Right.
And that's something you can do really well with Viberate. And I just want to jump back to screen sharing.
Go ahead.
Just in a second. There's this section we have. It's called, here it is. It's called Total Fanbase Distribution. And it shows you where exactly the artist's fan base is located. So we see in our example that most of his fans are coming from Instagram. So he has almost 200,000 Instagram fans, which is a lot. And in case you want to double down on your existing audience, Instagram could be a good choice to start promoting.
Right.
And we also have a tab dedicated to social media stats. That's where I want to go next. And there you can find more detailed stats for each artist on their social media channels. And some of those can actually really help you in knowing your audience better. So here is the social media audience map. This is exactly what I was talking about. This helps you know where your fan base is coming from. So in his case, we see that it's mostly in Europe, more specifically Germany, France, and Spain. So you can use this information, for example, to set proper targeting options when setting up paid promotion, or I don't know, maybe localize some assets and so on.
Do collabs, do a video translated,
yeah.
and so Okay, Jay, would this be how you go around creating marketing plans as well? I mean, how do you include data in your campaigns?
Well, I love what you're showing right here because today there's so much for artists to do, right? It used to be that they would just write, record, go on tour. But now there's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, there's so many other things to do. And by looking at that map that you showed earlier with the circle and it showed the distribution of the fan base, I think it's important that you don't try to be all things to all people. And what I mean by that is you've got this circle, and let's say that you're just killing it on Instagram, like I Hate Models is. double down on that, focus on that. You don't have to be everything, Twitter and Facebook and all of that. Find out, where the party is and join that party. Don't try to, start your own party. And I think that when you look at these graphs, you can get a really good sense of where your audience is. Now, when you talk about marketing plans, we always say that a playlist is not a marketing plan. And today it's a track-based economy. So you need to have a plan for every focus track that you're releasing. You have to have a narrative, meaning, a story about why is that important? Why should anybody care? And I think that's really important to go into your plan. And then you look at the data and get a sense of, well, where is your audience? Who is your audience? What would you like your audience to be? And then you try to reach them and engage them. And the only way to do that is to identify them. And this is a good way of doing that. And we do that with every marketing plan that we put together.
Okay, we've set our goals. We have optimized the plan. We've even executed it. Mihai, what is next? I mean, is there anything else that's important and Viberate can help us with?
Well, yeah, when actually designing analytics tools, I really like to talk to a lot of different music professionals because this allows me to understand what issues they have and what possible solutions we can come up with.
Right.
So, one thing that regularly comes up is the importance of results, and it's not just achieving results. Of course, you need to achieve results, but
It's a start.
yeah, in the end, you also need to prove that you're achieving results. So let's say, for example, you did a super successful campaign for a client,
Right.
and you prepared a really cool Excel sheet with all the great numbers there, and you send it to them. And but they're obviously not like a numbers person, so they don't see the value in that.
They're not like you and Jay. Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, well put. Yeah, but yeah, you need to prove the results of your work, and if you aren't able to do so, then they're going to look at you as a cost, not as an investment, because bringing results actually helps you for the future, right?
Right. Absolutely true.
Yeah,
Can you show us something in that field?
yeah, of course.
Oh,
Okay, just a sec, so I get there. Actually, there are a lot of different visualizations here that can really enhance reporting for many agencies or labels. But now I want to specifically focus on this segment. It's the engagement segment. We show engagement across different social media and streaming channels. You see here also charts. So these are for the past 3 months. So here we see that, for example, on Instagram, I Hate Models got 50,000 likes in the past 3 months. That's a
not
lot.
bad.
Yeah, and we see that there's a spike here in this week.
Yeah.
And if we pinpoint this spike, we see that it's in 22nd to 29th November. He received 15,000 Instagram likes. So, for example, if I did a campaign for him in that week, this would be a really cool way to show what kind of results that campaign got. But I did some digging actually around here and found that he did a tour not long ago. So actually, he posted one thing after the tour, and it got like an enormous response. So that was
Apparently,
the reason.
touring obviously pays off.
Obviously.
By the way, we can find live event info on Viberate as well, right?
Yeah, sure. You can find the live event info. You can also find the top social media content in the social media tab, as well as the top content on each of the streaming channels. So you see which are the top tracks and so on. I mean, I don't want to go into all the details. I think it's best if users explore around and find it themselves.
Jay,
Yeah.
would you? I mean, what would you recommend to somebody who hasn't started using data yet? Is there a right time to start? I mean, you mentioned your obsession with coffee and advised like a Friday coffee to go through the data. But is that often enough? Like weekly briefing in terms of data? What would you suggest to newcomers into a data-driven music industry?
I think you just need to do it. It's one of those things that sounds intimidating, but get the free trial, just go in, take a look at your data, and I think that you're going to find it very interesting. This particular screen that you're looking at, you can look at the 1 month, 3 month, 12 month, get a sense of the trend, look for those spikes. It's super easy because it's so visual to kind of see what those trends are. The other thing is you look for, maybe there's a spike across all of these. Now we're looking at engagement, and if you scroll up, you can see just these right here, right, where you can kind of get a sense of just the overall numbers. And I think it's really important for you to see what you're doing and if it's working and how it's trending. Again, look for those spikes, either low or high, and see what it was that caused them, and see if any of them are aligning across other platforms. Those simple things can inform your decisions about the creative that you're making, the videos, the banner sets, your 15-second Instagram stories ads that maybe drive to YouTube or Spotify. All of those things can be informed by just kind of glancing at this beautiful data. You're not looking at a spreadsheet. I know that's challenging for a lot of people just to look at raw numbers, but data is more important than just a bunch of numbers. It's like, can you make it actionable? Can you do something with it? There's an old joke in the data field that data is like a lamppost. You can use it to illuminate or you can use it to lean on. A lot of people unfortunately use data to lean on, meaning to support the views that they already have. Well, if you're open to it, I think that you're going to be surprised when you look at the data. Like we talked about audience. I'm constantly amazed at how many people look at the audience data and go, wow, I didn't realize that I had fans in that market. I didn't realize that my audience on socials was different than my commerce, those types of things. And it can really help you to build a marketing plan that's really focused on the right people and growing that audience. Because at the end of the day, it's what we touched on at the very beginning. It's really about who is your tribe. Who is that audience that would love what you do? Because there's a couple of reasons why people aren't streaming your new music or buying your new vinyl. Either A, they've never heard of you, or B, they've heard of you, but they didn't know you had anything new that was out. And those are two simple marketing things that you can handle by looking at the data.
Yes, I mean it's important to remember that music business is global. It's not just local anymore, and often artists find themselves surprised by getting to know that their tribe is actually from a country that they have not expected to be there. You know what I'm talking about, and then
Yeah.
you can again double down on, for example, Belgium or
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Guys,
I
thank you.
believe a fan is a fan. I'm sorry
Yeah,
to
go
cut
ahead.
you off. I believe a fan is a fan. It doesn't matter if they're in UK, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and you're from the United States. The only reason that would even matter is, let's say you're routing a tour in Canada and you want to see who your fan base is in Canada. But a fan is a fan. You want to make sure that you're engaging globally, because to your point, there really are no borders anymore when it comes to music.
Mhm.
This
Wonderful.
this just made me remember one thing. I think you mentioned to me, Jay, in one of my talks that about one of your clients and figuring out that the audience that came to the live shows was actually different in the end than the audience online, right?
Yeah. And that is because if you play certain venues like performing arts centers, that may be typically an older crowd that's subscribing to a program to go to that particular venue, and they're maybe not as engaged as somebody who's paying just to see you.
Hmm.
So that crowd may be a little older, may skew a little male. And then you look at your socials, and that's not older and that's not male. So that's why you have to look at those three audiences and get a sense of who it is. And that's why you need a data platform to do
Wonderful.
that.
Guys, wonderful. Before we jump into the Q&A section, which is usually very interesting, I'd like to encourage you all to enter the Vibrates Analytics 30-day free trial and apply what you've learned today to your work in music. Well, Vibrates also prepared a special offer for you today, a 30% discount for both the monthly and yearly subscription plan. Make sure to use the code GET30 when signing up. Again, The trial itself is free, so the discount comes in play after 30 days. Well, speaking of free trial, Mija, would you be so kind and guide us through the whole process? I'm sure many of us are interested in getting our Viberate Analytics subscription.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the easiest way to start is by simply clicking on a link in the chat
Okay.
section. So one of my colleagues will share it right away if they haven't yet. So what happens next is you will land on a page that I have opened right now.
Okay.
And you just start by clicking Start Free Trial, which will guide you through the plans section. And here you need to toggle between either monthly or annual plan. That's, of course, after the 30-day free trial. What I have to add here is that for the annual plan, you get an additional discount of 2 months. So you pay 10 for and get actually 12.
Got it.
Yeah. We also have an ongoing promotion for artists, festivals, and venues. They get 50 off their lifetime Viberate Premium subscription. All they need to do is claim their Viberate page, and that's it. So they can simply, if there are any artists, venues, or festivals around today, simply click on the Get Discount and follow the next simple steps.
Okay, I shouldn't forget about something very important. If you guys are, if the whole data thing is making you feel overwhelmed, let me reassure you, Vibrate's resource page offers tons and tons of step-by-step tutorials, guides, and articles to help you kickstart your music analytics journey. Okay, now to the Q&A. Mija, I guess this one is for you. How can data help you if you don't have an audience yet and you're just starting out? What do you analyze then? Good question from
Yeah.
apparently upcoming artist.
This is a good one, yeah. Also, I've heard this one before on interviews with artists.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of artists are just starting out, obviously, so they don't have an established fan base yet. But obviously, they have a genre, they have somebody who they look up to. So you can just study their audience, study what they're doing on social media, try and learn something from their approaches, because in the end, on Viberate, you can check any artist, not just your own stats. So you can learn a lot by looking at, for example, audience sections of other artists, which channels they are promoting their music on, as well as also their top performing content on different social media channels.
Okay, learn from the best, we could say. Jay, somebody's asking, you spoke about buying fake followers and such. What what is the benefit of buying them and using streaming farms? Why would anybody do that?
Well, they may not know that they're using bots and spin farms. There's so many companies out there right now that'll just send out these emails. Sometimes they'll even use a DSP logo like Spotify and make it look like it's official. And they'll say, for this much money, we'll guarantee you this many spins. And people are like, wow, I need more spins. I want people to go to my, let's say Spotify, for example, and look at my artist page and see that I've got a lot of plays on this song and I need help with that. And I needed to get the revenue from that. And the problem with that is those aren't real fans. So if you employ one of these companies and they jack up your spin numbers, number one, you could get pulled off of the DSP. That's number one. Number two is it doesn't mean anything, because if you go to play a live show, you don't have any, these aren't real fans. So it's just a bad thing to do. And they'll do it with YouTube. They'll do it with, socials, likes and follows. And sometimes there are firms that you may not even know that they're doing it. So you need to ask the question when you're hiring an outside agency, who do you use, and do they use any type of bots, spin farms, or tactics that aren't legitimate, because it'll just hurt your career in the long run.
Okay, let's talk about the recent years. The industry lost a lot of money and isn't basically the same as before the pandemic. Can data help here, and if so, how? That's a question.
Yeah,
good question.
Absolutely, it can. I'll let Miha address this too. But there's so many new platforms now that we didn't have before, things like TikTok and Twitch. And there's certain ways that you can make revenue now that, 2 years ago, people weren't talking about Peloton or Roblox. It's a whole new music industry. And the one key point I want people to realize is that for the working class, the middle class artists, there's not a ton of revenue in sales streams and downloads. But you can get to that upper echelon if you build that audience and find that tribe that's going to stick with you. And in order to do that, you need to identify it. And something that Miha talked about a second ago is, even if you don't have any audience, you're just starting out, you can take those artists that you want to be like, or that you would want to tour with or record with, collaborate with, ones that you feel like their audience is your audience. And to Miha's point, look and see where they are. What socials are they on? How are they trending? Where are they geographically? And those things are very important.
Well, I mean, this reset of music industry
Yeah.
is also an opportunity, right?
Yeah, of course. I just wanted to add here, similarly as I talked before, it's about results in the end, and what the type of things get cut during difficult periods. Their costs, not investment. So
Right.
in the end, if you're like a label or an agency providing consulting services, if you bring value to the table and if you're able to show that value, I think you shouldn't worry, and data can help you do that.
Right, right.
Agreed.
Jay, also, can you shortly tell us about an innovative campaign or innovative campaign or uncommon promotional decision you took recently based solely on data?
Wow. So, almost every campaign we do, data is such a big part of it. There's an old joke in advertising that, half my advertising doesn't work. I just don't know which half. And with data, you can see what's working and what's not. Again, it sounds pedantic, but you look at those spikes, you look at that data and you see, what am I doing that's working? So let's say you run some targeted online advertising one week. Well, then you go back in the next week and take a look. Did it resonate? And we do that on every campaign that we do. Are you, hiring an influencer, on YouTube or TikTok or something? We find that sometimes you can get big numbers on TikTok, but it's one of the toughest platforms to really get real engagement that kind of bleeds over into these other platforms. And the only way you know that is by looking at these trends. And I think with Viberate, you can see visually, you can just see that curve. You can see that if there are any spikes and how it's trending. And I think, again, we do that with pretty much not only every artist, but every track release throughout the release cycle.
Well, and the next question is really connected to previous one. Which social platform is better for artists right now, TikTok or Instagram? Jay.
I think I have some artists that are killing it on TikTok, and then I have some that are killing it on Instagram. I think one of the reasons why you need a platform like this is to see where your audience is. It may be mostly on YouTube. If you're, a certain genre or mood, it may still
Right.
be on Facebook. So I can tell you that in general, people are really gravitating towards Instagram, especially younger artists. Again, TikTok is pretty easy to gain video views and to gain, an audience, but that doesn't necessarily translate over to other platforms. But I think for my money, Instagram has just been such a great tool for our artists.
If I can just
Go ahead.
add here, yeah. Obviously, it depends. It depends also
artist,
who you're targeting. If you're targeting younger people, TikTok might be an obvious choice. If your demographic is a bit older, then maybe not even Instagram, maybe
Right.
Facebook. So whenever there's a question which is better, the most obvious answer is it depends.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's right.
Here's a question from industry professional, apparently. As an agency, we're struggling to retain existing clients and get new ones. How can we use data to help us with this problem?
Mm.
Micha.
I'd like to
Yeah?
comment on
Go
that.
ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
sure.
Jay.
I think you need to show that you add value. And I think that's been lost in some of the conversations. If you're an agency, regardless of what your roles and responsibilities are, if you can show that you're adding value, I think that's where you win. And by doing, well, you have to show that in a way that people will understand visually. And that's why some of these charts and graphs that we were talking about show them that the campaigns that you're running or the things that you're doing are actually helping the trend in the right direction. And you can do that visually. I think that's really the key today is showing your artists, managers, labels, distribution that your agency is actually adding value.
Hmm. Hmm. I think that's pretty connected to. I think we had this similar question, like
Yes.
2 questions before. So yeah, like Jay said, you need to add value. You can also make data like your competitive edge. You know,
Hmm.
it can become your USP if you start using it, because people trust people who use data, because data can't lie and it can speak louder than actual words. Or
Right.
I don't know.
Especially in a presentable form, as a report card. Here it works.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So let's summarize what we have learned today, guys. The majors have been using data for years, and now it is accessible to everyone. So we can't really say it's the future. Basically, it is already the present. Now,
Yeah.
by using Viberate, you can optimize your advertising costs. You do so by focusing on the right markets, channels, and audiences. Know who you are advertising to. Well, in order to effectively execute a strategy, you need to set measurable goals. This allows you to keep track on your progress and keep in the right direction. And we could also add that music analytics tool like Viberate can help you when visualizing the results of your work so you can communicate value effectively. This can, of course, help you retain clients and gain new ones. Um, Guys, this brings us to the end of our webinar. I'd like to invite you all again to give Viberate Analytics a go in the free trial. If you're as excited about music data and the possibilities it opens up as I am, then you'll be happy to hear that we already have another webinar lined up. It'll focus specifically on Spotify playlists, which is one of the
Hmm.
hottest topics in music industry these days. Well, I believe our panelists will share the sign up link to the webinar in the chat as well as the Viberate Analytics trial link. Jay, thank you very much for this wonderful discussion. I'm sure we'll keep up these discussions
Yeah.
in the future. Micha,
Always a
wonderful.
pleasure.
And hope your day goes better with a good coffee. And Micha, thank you very much for being here with us,
A
guys.
pleasure.
Thank you again for tuning in, and thanks to the wonderful people here at Viberate. Take care. Bye.